Hi everyone, welcome to the lesson intro video for Unit 3, Lesson 7, Trade and Development. Here are our objectives and standards which you can pause to read. Trade. People have access to different resources depending on their location, and trade is used to redistribute those resources. Societies look at the comparative advantage of exchanging goods and services. Looking at the comparative advantage means they're deciding if it's in their best interest to agree to a trade. People only engage in trade when it benefits them. They could have access to raw materials and resources they don't normally have, or create a positive relationship with another nation. Trade and geography. Geography can give a country advantages or disadvantages. Countries with ocean access can easily ship things overseas. Countries that have manufacturing plants far away from markets will need to build roads or railroads to transport the goods, and that can make things more difficult. Mountainous nations may also have a hard time moving goods. Geography can affect trade in another way. When it's summer in the northern hemisphere, farms and orchards in the United States produce the fruit that Americans buy in stores. Those farms and orchards cannot grow these products in the winter, however. Winter in the northern hemisphere is summer in the southern hemisphere. Producers in Chile grow blueberries, grapes, and other fruits and then ship them to the United States for sale. Types of trade. All of the buying and selling that takes place within a country is known as domestic trade. Domestic trade involves producers and consumers located inside the same country. When you go to the store and buy apples from a nearby farm, this is domestic trade. Domestic producers and consumers also engage in international trade, or trade with foreign producers and consumers. International trade involves exports and imports. Exports are goods and services produced within a country and sold outside its border. Imports are goods and services sold in one country but produced in another. International trade requires a system for exchanging different currencies. Consumers in a country use their country's currency to buy imported goods. The company that made those goods wants to be paid in the currency of its own country. A system must exist for exchanging these two currencies. This system is the international currency market. This market sets prices for each country in terms of other currencies. Using the currency market, companies in the United States can trade with companies in other countries. Let's look at trade between the United States and China. The U.S. exports to China about $116 billion, and China is ranked third among U.S. export destinations. The U.S. imports about $482 billion worth from China, and China's rank is first among U.S. imports. If we look on the right-hand side of this chart, we can see U.S. exports to China. We have food, aircraft, machinery, automobiles, and semiconductors. Those are things that we sell to China. If we look at the Chinese exports to the United States, these are things that we import from China. So from China, we import cell phones, clothing, computers, computer equipment, and toys and games. Trade barriers and free trade. A trade barrier is a government policy or restriction that limits international trade. One of our vocab terms is tariffs. Tariffs are tax on an import. Two other trade barriers are quotas and embargoes. Quotas is a set limit on the amount of something that can be imported, and embargoes ban all trade with a country. Free trade happens when all trade barriers are removed. This allows for lower prices and more choices. It helps relationships between nations, but they can negatively impact domestic producers and can lead to a loss in domestic jobs. Economic development. Economists use the concept of development to talk about a country's economic well-being. Development is economic growth or increase in living standards. When they study development, economists look at factors like people's education, literacy, and life expectancy. They also examine people's purchasing power or their ability to buy goods and services. This gives clues to the general standard of living that the people of a country have. In high-income countries, workers can earn relatively high pay for their work. As a result, they have high purchasing power and enjoy a high standard of living. In low-income countries, wages are poor. These workers have low purchasing power and a low standard of living. A developed country with a strong economy has a high standard of living, such as the United States or Japan. Only a small percentage of the world's countries are highly developed. Most nations are classified as developing. Developing countries, such as Haiti or Ethiopia, have less productive economies and lower standards of living. Economists use gross domestic product to measure a country's economy. GDP, or gross domestic product, is the total value of goods and services produced in a year in that country. Let's look at this world map showing levels of human development. This is showing us how high the development of a certain country is. And we can see the darker the green, the higher the development. And then medium is shown in yellow and low is shown in orange. So as you can see, some examples of high developed countries would be the United States, most of Western Europe, Saudi Arabia, and Australia. Some high but not very high developed countries would be Brazil, China, and Russia. Some medium countries include India and South Africa. And some low developed countries would be countries like Afghanistan or the Congo.